5 days after the doctor told me I had aggressive lymphoma, my wife slid divorce papers across the kitchen table while I was still wearing the hospital wristband. Then I checked our bank account. I remember stupid details from that night more clearly than I remember the diagnosis itself. The ticking clock above the stove, the smell of burnt coffee sitting in the pot too long, the sound Linda's fingernails made tapping the granite countertop while she waited for me to say something. It was March of 2019. Cold enough in Fort Wayne that the windows still fogged around the edges. I'd just gotten home from Parkview Regional Medical Center. My oncologist had spent 40 minutes explaining treatment plans, chemo schedules, survival rates, insurance paperwork. By the end of it, my head felt packed with wet cement. I walked into my own kitchen hoping for comfort. Instead, I found a yellow legal pad divorce papers and my wife sitting there in a cream-colored sweater, looking irritated that dinner was running late. "You already talked to a lawyer?" I asked. Linda folded her hands together. "Calm. Too calm. David," she said, "one round of chemo could wipe us out financially." I stared at her. 24 years of marriage, and that was her opening sentence. Not "how are you feeling?" Not "we'll figure it out." Just math. I pulled out a chair slowly because my legs suddenly felt weak in a way that had nothing to do with cancer. "I have insurance." "You have private insurance," she corrected. "Your deductible alone is insane." She wasn't wrong. I owned a small HVAC company. Self-employed guys like me didn't get those cushy corporate health plans. I paid almost $1,800 a month for coverage that still somehow found ways not to cover anything useful. But hearing her talk about my illness like it was a bad investment made my stomach turn. "I'm going to fight this," I said quietly. Linda looked down for a second before meeting my eyes again. "I know you are." There wasn't even cruelty in her voice anymore. That was the strange part. She sounded tired, detached, like somebody canceling a gym membership. Then she said the sentence I don't think I'll ever completely forget. "I'm not wasting my money or my youth watching somebody die slowly." Upstairs, I heard a floorboard creak. Emma, our daughter, thought we didn't notice when she listened from the staircase, but parents always know. I looked toward the hallway. Linda didn't even lower her voice. "David, I'm 48 years old. I don't want to become a widow before I'm actually a widow." For a second, I honestly wondered if the chemo had already started frying my brain. Nothing about the conversation felt real. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, more because my body didn't know what else to do. "You planned this before I got home, didn't you?" She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I stood up and grabbed my phone from the counter. My hands were shaking harder than I wanted her to see. The bank app loaded. Joint checking account balance, $3,214. I blinked. That account had almost $90,000 in it 3 days earlier. "What the hell is this?" Linda exhaled sharply, annoyed now that we'd reached the messy part. I moved my portion before treatment starts eating through everything. Your portion. It was the responsible thing to do. I scrolled again, hoping maybe I'd opened the wrong account somehow. But there it was. Transfer after transfer after transfer. Then I saw the memo line on the final withdrawal. This should cover a few treatments. That hurt worse than the divorce papers. Not because of the money. Because 24 years together had apparently ended with my wife leaving me grocery money and a sarcastic note. I heard movement behind me. Emma stood halfway down the stairs in sweatpants and one of my old Notre Dame hoodies. Her face looked pale. "Mom." Linda closed her eyes briefly like she'd hoped to avoid this part. "Emma, honey, go upstairs." "Number." Her voice cracked on the word. I remember thinking she suddenly looked younger than 17, like the little girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms. "Mom, Dad's sick." Linda stood up abruptly, and I'm supposed to destroy my entire future because of it. The room went dead quiet after that. Emma stared at her mother like she'd never seen her before. Honestly, neither had I. 3 days later, Linda moved into a downtown condo near Jefferson Point, with a man named Trevor Hale. I met him once when he pulled into my driveway in a white Porsche Macan while I was dragging trash cans to the curb. Tall guy, expensive watch, teeth too white. He stepped out wearing loafers without socks, even though it was 38 degrees outside. "Hey man," he said like we were buddies. "Sorry, things got messy." I just looked at him. Then he added, "You gotta protect your energy in this life, right? Protect your energy." Meanwhile, I had cancer cells trying to colonize my lymph nodes. I almost laughed in his face. Instead, I picked up the trash can and rolled it toward the garage. Chemo started 2 weeks later. That first treatment lasted almost 6 hours. You notice strange things sitting in oncology rooms. The silence, the blankets warmed fresh from hospital dryers, the way older married couples hold hands without speaking much. Across from me, a woman in her 70s rubbed lotion onto her husband's cracked knuckles while they watched a game show together on mute. I kept pretending to read a Bass Pro Shops catalog because I couldn't handle the embarrassment of sitting there alone. Emma waited the entire time in the parking garage because she was too young to sit in the infusion room. When I finally came out nauseous and exhausted, she held up 2 Dunkin' cups. "One's black coffee," she said carefully. "The other one's hot water, because Google said you shouldn't drink too much caffeine during chemo." That almost broke me right there. The months after that blurred together. Pills, insurance calls, vomiting at 2 in the morning, trying to run my HVAC business between treatments. I forgot laundry in the washer so long it smelled like mildew. I burned grilled cheese sandwiches because chemo brain made me wander off halfway through cooking. One afternoon, I tried making canned chicken soup for Emma and nearly threw up from the smell myself. Still made her finish homework at the kitchen table while I sat there sweating through my t-shirt. The hardest day came in August. I sold my fishing boat. Nothing fancy, just an old Ranger bass boat I'd owned since Emma was 10. I needed tuition money for her prep school because Linda had suddenly decided private school was an unnecessary expense. After the buyer drove away towing it behind his truck, I sat alone in the garage, staring at the empty space where it used to be. I cried so hard my ribs hurt. Not because of the boat, because I realized my old life was officially gone. That night, the chemo exhaustion hit me hard. I fell asleep on the couch with the TV still on low volume. Around midnight, I woke up just enough to feel someone pulling a blanket over me. "Emma." She tucked it around my shoulders gently. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "For what?" "For all this." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said softly, "I'm not going anywhere, Dad." I believed her. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. 3.5 years passed like that. Not dramatically. Not in some movie montage where inspiring music plays while a man rebuilds his life. Mostly it was paperwork, exhaustion, early alarms, trying to keep the lights on. Cancer treatment ended, but recovery wasn't some magical finish line. Nobody tells you that part clearly enough. They say words like remission and surviving, and people assume everything goes back to normal afterward. It doesn't. By late 2020, the tumors were gone, but my body still felt like somebody had unplugged half the wiring. My hands tingled from nerve damage. I got tired climbing stairs. Every follow-up scan turned me into a nervous wreck 3 days beforehand. And financially, I was hanging on by my fingernails. My HVAC business survived mostly because Indiana summers don't care if you have lymphoma. When somebody's air conditioner dies in July, they call anyway. There were days I dragged myself into crawl spaces, feeling like I might pass out from heat. One afternoon in Auburn, I actually had to sit on a customer's driveway for 15 minutes because my legs started shaking halfway through replacing a condenser unit. The homeowner came outside holding 2 Gatorades. "You all right there, buddy?" "Yeah," I lied, "just old." He laughed. I laughed too. Then I sat there wondering if 49 counted as old now. Emma got me through most of it without realizing how much she was carrying. She developed this quiet habit during chemo follow-ups. Every scan day, she'd show up with coffee and something sugary like powdered donuts or cinnamon rolls from a little bakery near DuPont Road. Doctors can't give bad news while people are eating pastries, she'd say. That became our superstition. One winter morning, after a clean scan, she raised her coffee cup in the parking garage and said, "Congratulations. You're still annoyingly alive." I remember laughing so hard I nearly spilled coffee on my jeans. That girl saved me more times than she'll probably ever understand. There were ugly moments, too. Steroids during treatment messed with my temper sometimes. One night, Emma forgot to tell me she was staying late after debate practice, and I completely lost it when she walked through the door. I yelled. Not screaming exactly, but louder than I should have. "You can't just disappear for hours without answering your phone." She froze. I saw it immediately, that look kids get when they realize their parent is unraveling. Then she quietly said, "My phone died." The second the words left her mouth, I hated myself. I sat down at the kitchen table and rubbed my face with both hands. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Emma walked over and hugged me anyway. That somehow made me feel worse. Meanwhile, Linda continued existing mostly through expensive packages and emotionally empty text messages. One birthday, Emma got a Gucci handbag shipped from Chicago with a note that read, "Proud of you, Emily." Her middle name wasn't Emily. It was Elaine. Emma stared at the card for maybe 5 seconds before tossing it into the trash. She couldn't even read the monogrammed towel she bought me last Christmas, she muttered. Another year, Linda sent a $200 Starbucks gift card. $200. My daughter drank maybe 3 coffees a month. No phone call, no visit, just money. Like she was tipping a valet. Trevor made everything worse. That man treated life like a motivational podcast nobody asked to hear. Every conversation somehow turned into mindset. Poor people stay poor because they think emotionally. Millionaires wake up at 4 a.m. Energy attracts abundance. Meanwhile, debt collectors literally called Linda's phone during one of Emma's birthday dinners because Trevor had maxed out another credit card flipping rental condos. At one point, he started posting fake inspirational videos online while standing beside cars he clearly didn't own. One video opened with, "You gotta move like a wolf if you want to escape sheep mentality." The comments absolutely destroyed him. My favorite was, "Brother, that's a rented Maserati from Enterprise." Even Emma laughed at that one. But Trevor crossed a line eventually. Emma posted senior photos online during her last year of high school. Nice pictures, simple blue dress, trees in the background. Trevor commented publicly, "Looking good, kiddo." Emma showed me at breakfast the next morning. I nearly choked on my toast. "That guy's a damn weirdo," I said. Emma looked physically disgusted. Linda defended him, of course. That's just how Trevor jokes. No, that's how middle-aged men act when they desperately need attention. By then, Emma barely tolerated calls from her mother. Still, she tried harder than Linda ever did. That's the thing people don't understand about kids during divorce. Most of them desperately want permission to love both parents. They'll twist themselves into emotional knots, trying to keep peace. Emma did that for years. Then Purdue happened. The acceptance letter came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Engineering program. West Lafayette campus. I found the envelope sitting in the mailbox beside grocery coupons and an electric bill. Emma opened it standing in the kitchen, while frozen pizzas cooked in the oven. The second she started crying, I knew. "Oh my God," she kept saying. "Oh my God." I hugged her so hard she squeaked. That night after she went upstairs, I sat alone in the garage holding that acceptance letter like it was made of gold. Not because Purdue was fancy. Because there were months during chemo when I honestly wasn't sure I'd live long enough to see her graduate high school. A few days later, Linda called unexpectedly. Video call. First one in years. She looked different. More work done around the eyes. Too much lip filler. Trevor wandered through the background holding a protein shake. "Emma," Linda said brightly, "I'm so proud of you." Emma smiled politely. Then Linda said the real reason she called. "I've been thinking maybe it's time we became a family again." Nobody answered. She kept going anyway. "I can help with Purdue. Tuition, housing, whatever you need." Trevor suddenly leaned into frame. "We should celebrate big," he said. "Successful people deserve rewards." I watched Emma's expression flatten completely. Not angry, just tired. After the call ended, she sat quietly at the kitchen table for a long time, spinning her phone in circles. Finally, she looked at me and asked, "Do you think money fixes what people break?" I wanted to say yes. Life would have been easier if it did. Instead, I told her the truth. "No," I said. "It just makes people feel less guilty sometimes." Emma nodded slowly. Then she got up and started doing calculus homework like the conversation never happened. But something had shifted. I could feel it. Graduation was 2 months away. And for the first time in years, Linda suddenly wanted front row seats in our lives again. Emma's graduation day started at 5 in the morning, with me standing in a Meijer parking lot ironing my shirt in the front seat of a Ford Escape that smelled faintly like motor oil and peppermint gum. That's not a joke. I'd hung the shirt carefully the night before, but somewhere between the house and downtown Fort Wayne, it ended up wrinkled anyway. So there I was balancing a travel iron on the center console while eating a stale blueberry muffin from a gas station. I remember looking at myself in the rearview mirror afterward. The suit still hung loose on me. Cancer had taken almost 30 pounds I never fully gained back. My cheeks looked sharper now, older, tired around the eyes, but I'd made it there. That mattered. Allen County War Memorial Coliseum was already crowded by 6:30. Parents carrying flower bouquets, grandparents waddling through parking lots and folding shoes, teenagers taking selfies in graduation caps while pretending not to care about any of it. Indiana humidity had already started kicking in. My shirt stuck to my back before sunrise. I got in line early because Emma deserved good seats. That girl had sat through enough hospital waiting rooms for me. The least I could do was make sure I could see her walk across a stage. By 7:15, I was inside holding 2 coffees and a paper bag with sausage biscuits. I knew Emma wouldn't eat because nerves always killed her appetite before big events. She spotted me near Section B and smiled immediately. There's something about seeing your child in a graduation gown that hits you sideways emotionally. One second you're thinking about parking validation, the next, you're remembering them learning how to ride a bike. "You got here ridiculously early, didn't you?" she asked. "I wanted the good seats. You're such an old man." "Correct." She laughed softly and took the coffee from me. Her blue graduation stole matched the little blue earrings she wore. Simple, elegant, no drama. Exactly like her. For about 20 peaceful minutes, everything felt normal. Then Linda arrived. You could smell Trevor's cologne before you saw him. Seriously. Some sharp, expensive scent that hit the air like somebody had detonated a department store fragrance counter. Linda came through the entrance, wearing a fitted white pantsuit and oversized sunglasses, even though we were indoors. Trevor walked beside her, live streaming on his phone, while carrying a giant gift bag with a red bow. "Big day," he announced loudly to absolutely nobody. A few parents turned around, already annoyed. Emma's shoulders tightened beside me. Linda swept in like a politician arriving at a fundraiser. "Oh my God, Emma," she said, dramatically pulling her into a long hug clearly meant for an audience. Emma hugged her back politely but stiffly. Trevor pointed his phone toward them. "My stepdaughter's graduating today," he announced to the live stream. Emma visibly flinched at the word stepdaughter. I noticed immediately. Linda finally looked at me. For half a second, something awkward passed across her face. Maybe guilt, maybe discomfort. Then it vanished. "David," she said with a tight smile, "you look healthy. Not good. Not happy. Healthy." Like I was a recovering dog. "Morning, Linda." Trevor stuck out his hand. I ignored it. To his credit, he recovered fast. "No hard feelings, man," he said. "Life's short." I stared at him for a second. Apparently. Emma nearly choked on her coffee, trying not to laugh. That bought me exactly 1 minute of joy before Trevor started talking again. He kept pacing around, filming everything. Parents, decorations, programs. At one point he actually said, "Success leaves clues, people." What does that even mean at a high school graduation? Meanwhile, Linda kept making little comments disguised as compliments. Oh, Emma's so lucky she inherited my ambition. We always knew she was meant for bigger things. Purdue's expensive, but thankfully some of us planned ahead. Little digs, tiny cuts, the kind that sound harmless unless you know the history behind them. I ignored all of it. Then Trevor announced he had a surprise. Outside near the parking lot sat a bright red Corvette Stingray with a giant white ribbon stretched across the hood. People actually stopped walking to look at it. A couple teenagers nearby started recording on their phones. Trevor spun the key fob around one finger like he was in a car commercial. "Only the best for our girl," he said proudly. Linda smiled toward the small crowd gathering around the car. "You deserve a future bigger than struggle, sweetheart." Emma didn't move. Didn't smile either. She just stared at the Corvette silently. I suddenly became very aware of my old Escape parked 3 rows over, with rust spots near the rear bumper and one mismatched hubcap. Trevor kept talking. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, he said. "This thing's a beast." Emma finally spoke. "That seems unnecessary." Trevor laughed loudly. "That's poor person thinking." Linda smiled carefully at him, but I caught the irritation in her eyes. Even she knew he sounded ridiculous. Then she turned back toward Emma. "Well, your father's always been practical." There was something sharp underneath the sentence. I looked away toward the parking lot. Honestly, part of me wanted Emma to take the car. I know that sounds pathetic, but Purdue wasn't cheap. My business still wasn't fully stable. And no matter how much pride you have, there's a part of you that wants your child protected financially, even if the help comes from people who hurt you. That's what made the next few minutes so complicated inside my head. Because while I stood there trying to swallow my pride, Linda leaned closer to Emma and quietly said, "You don't want your whole life looking like your father's." Emma's face changed instantly. Linda kept going. "He's a good man, sweetheart, but he never had vision. Look at that suit. It's embarrassing at an event like this." I felt my stomach drop. Not because the words hurt, because she said them to our daughter. About me. Right in front of me. And for the first time all morning, Emma looked angry. Not emotional. Not hurt. Angry. Real anger. The kind that arrives cold and calm. Trevor, completely oblivious, dangled the Corvette keys toward her with a grin. "Go ahead," he said. "Take a look inside." Emma reached out slowly, took the keys, then looked at me for one long second. And suddenly I got nervous, because I recognized that expression. It was the same look she had the day a boy shoved another girl in middle school, and Emma quietly walked over and broke his nose with a cafeteria tray. My daughter didn't explode often, but when she finally reached her limit, God help whoever was standing nearby. The graduation ceremony itself barely registered in my memory after that. I remember applause, names being called, the sound of folding chairs creaking every time another family stood for photos. But mostly I remember watching Emma from the audience and wondering what exactly was happening inside her head. She crossed the stage around noon. Big smile, honor cords swinging against her gown. The Purdue engineering stole bright blue under the arena lights. I stood so fast clapping that my knee almost locked up. Linda screamed louder than everybody else combined. Trevor filmed the whole thing vertically while yelling, "That's my girl." A woman beside me actually winced. After the ceremony ended, families spilled outside into the heat. Everywhere you looked, there were balloons, bouquets, grandparents crying, dads pretending they weren't crying. Indiana in June always smells like hot pavement and sunscreen. Trevor practically sprinted toward the Corvette. "This is going to be legendary content," he announced. He positioned Emma beside the car, while Linda adjusted her hair and sunglasses for photos. A small crowd gathered naturally because, well, it was a bright red Corvette with a giant bow on it. People are nosy. I stayed back near the curb holding Emma's flowers, honestly hoping we could survive the next 10 minutes without some kind of disaster. That hope lasted maybe 30 seconds. Trevor lifted his phone dramatically. "All right, everybody," he said to the live stream. "Hard work pays off." Emma took the keys from her gown pocket slowly. For a second, I thought maybe she'd simply thank them politely and move on. Honestly, part of me wanted that. I was tired. Tired of conflict. Tired of hospitals. Tired of feeling like every important moment somehow turned into emotional shrapnel. But then Emma cleared her throat. "Can I say something first?" Trevor grinned. "Absolutely." "Big mistake." Emma turned away from the Corvette and faced the small crowd instead. Her hand shook slightly, holding the keys. At first, her voice came out softer than usual. "Thank you for the gift," she said carefully. Linda smiled immediately. Then Emma added, "But I can't accept it." The entire mood shifted. You could actually feel it. Trevor blinked twice like his brain stalled. Linda gave a quick, nervous laugh. "Emma, sweetheart." "No," Emma said quietly. "Please let me finish." That shut everybody up. Even the traffic noise nearby suddenly felt distant. Emma looked down at the keys for a second before continuing. "My dad drove me everywhere in that old Ford Escape over there." She pointed toward the parking lot. People turned. The Escape looked exactly like what it was, an aging SUV with faded paint and a dent near the passenger side door. Emma's voice steadied a little. "School, debate tournaments, doctor appointments, hospitals." I felt my chest tighten. 3 summers without air conditioning, she continued, because fixing it cost too much at the time. Linda's smile was completely gone now. Trevor lowered his phone slightly. Emma looked directly at her mother. "You left when he started chemo." A few nearby conversations stopped completely. "He was throwing up in the bathroom at 2 in the morning, Emma said, "and still waking up early to make sure I got to school." Linda crossed her arms tightly. "Emma, this is not appropriate." Emma ignored her. "He missed meals, sleep, work, everything." Then her voice cracked a little. "But he never missed one thing for me." That line hit harder than anything else because it was true. Every scan, every recital, every stupid school fundraiser selling frozen cookie dough. I showed up. Sometimes exhausted, sometimes scared out of my mind. But I showed up. Linda stepped closer, lowering her voice sharply. "You're embarrassing me." Emma looked at her for a long second. Then she said something I don't think anybody there will ever forget. "I was embarrassed a long time ago." Dead silence. Even Trevor looked uncomfortable now. Emma held up the Corvette keys between 2 fingers. "This car is beautiful," she said. "But it can't buy back 4 years." Linda's face flushed red. "Emma, stop." "Number." Her voice got stronger now, calmer. "You missed birthdays, panic attacks, scan days, Christmases." Then she pointed toward me. "He sold his fishing boat so I could stay in school." I immediately looked down because I hadn't even known she remembered that. Trevor suddenly tried stepping in with this awkward, fake laugh. "Kid, come on," he said. "It's just a car." Emma turned toward him. "Exactly." That landed hard. "Which makes it really weird that you thought it could replace being a parent." A couple people nearby actually muttered. "Damn." Trevor reached for the keys, looking irritated now. "All right, enough drama." And that's when God himself apparently decided the scene needed comedy. Because Trevor fumbled the keys. Straight into a storm drain. Clink. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Everybody froze. Trevor stared down at the drain in horror. Then came the beautiful part. He dropped to his knees in an expensive cream-colored suit and started trying to shove his arm through the grate. "Are you kidding me?" he snapped. Several parents nearby burst out laughing. Not politely either. Real laughter. Trevor's face turned dark red while he struggled on the pavement, sweating through designer clothes, cursing under his breath. Meanwhile, the live stream was apparently still running. A teenage boy whispered. Bro's whole audience just watched him lose a Corvette. I had to bite the inside of my cheek not to laugh myself. Linda looked seconds away from exploding. Then finally she turned toward me. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You poisoned her against me." And right there, after years of swallowing anger, something inside me finally settled. Not snapped. Settled. Because I realized I truly wasn't afraid of her anymore. I looked directly at Linda and answered quietly. Number. She stared at me. I spent years protecting her from the truth. I paused. I just stopped lying. That hit her harder than yelling ever could have. Linda opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For once there was no clever response, no performance, no audience control. Just silence. Emma walked over beside me and took my hand like she used to when she was little, crossing parking lots. Let's go home, Dad. I nodded. Behind us, Trevor was still kneeling beside the storm drain trying to fish out Corvette keys, while strangers openly laughed and recorded him. Linda called after us once. Neither of us turned around. We just kept walking toward that old Ford Escape baking in the Indiana heat. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel ashamed of that car at all. A strange thing happens after a moment you imagined for years finally arrives. You expect fireworks, closure, some dramatic feeling where all the hurt leaves your body at once. Instead, life just keeps going. 3 days after graduation, I was standing in my kitchen at 6 in the morning, eating dry Cheerios from the box, while Emma argued with our printer about dorm paperwork. That was revenge, apparently. Paperwork. Laundry. Costco runs. Honestly, I preferred it that way. The video from graduation spread around faster than I expected. Somebody uploaded Trevor dropping the Corvette keys into the storm drain, and for about 2 weeks, half of Fort Wayne seemed to know about it. One HVAC customer opened the door laughing before I even introduced myself. Aren't you Corvette girl's dad? I nearly walked back to the truck. Emma hated the attention. People are weird, she muttered after one woman stopped her in Target to say. Good for you, honey. But beneath the embarrassment, I think part of her felt relieved. Like she'd finally stopped carrying something heavy. Linda texted several times after graduation. At first angry, then defensive, then suddenly emotional. One message read, I made mistakes, but I'm still your mother. Emma stared at that text for a long time before locking her phone and setting it face down on the counter. She always says mistakes, like she forgot to mail a birthday card, she said quietly. I didn't answer. Because honestly, I still didn't know how to help her navigate that kind of grief. People think betrayal feels sharp forever. It doesn't. Eventually it becomes heavy instead. Like carrying wet clothes around in your chest. By August, Purdue move-in day arrived. I wasn't ready. Not even close. The night before we left, Emma stayed up until almost midnight, labeling storage bins, while old rock music played quietly from her phone. Every few minutes she'd randomly announce things like, college dorm mattresses probably contain diseases, or, if my roommate owns a ukulele, I'm transferring. I laughed more that night than I had in months. After she finally went upstairs to sleep, I walked through the house turning off lights and noticed little yellow post-it notes everywhere. On the refrigerator. Don't forget breakfast sometimes. On the coffee maker. Use real filters this time, Dad. Bathroom mirror. Take your meds. And stuck near the garage door. Love you more than football season. That one nearly finished me off. The next morning we packed the Escape until the rear bumper practically kissed the tires. Mini fridge, pillows, storage cubes, engineering textbooks heavy enough to damage flooring. Halfway to West Lafayette, Emma suddenly said, Dad. Yeah. If Mom contacts you again because of me, you don't have to protect her anymore. I kept my eyes on Interstate 65 for a few seconds before answering. I wasn't protecting her, I said. Emma gave me a look that clearly said, you absolutely were. And maybe she was right. Part of me had spent years trying to soften reality for her, trying to preserve some version of her mother that no longer existed. But kids eventually see things clearly anyway, no matter how hard you try. Purdue was chaos. Parents hauling boxes through crowded dorm halls, students pretending they weren't terrified, folding carts squeaking across concrete sidewalks. At one point, Emma looked at me and whispered, Everybody here looks sleep-deprived already. That made me laugh. After we finished unpacking, we stood awkwardly beside her dorm bed for a minute. Neither of us knew how to end. Then she hugged me hard. Not polite. Not quick. The kind of hug that says, "Thank you," without using words. "I'll be okay," she said into my shoulder. I know. That drive home nearly killed me. Not emotionally dramatic, just quiet. The house felt wrong without her in it. No music upstairs. No half-finished tea mugs near the sink. No sarcastic comments during weather reports. For the first few days, I kept almost calling out her name before remembering. Then came the Ford Escape surprise. Summer had ended, but the air conditioning still hadn't worked. I'd gotten used to driving with the windows down like some retired guy refusing modern technology. One Saturday morning, I finally dropped the SUV at a repair shop near Lima Road. The mechanic looked confused, checking the paperwork. "You already paid." "I what?" He turned the screen toward me. "Paid in full. Customer note. Make sure the AC works perfectly. He won't spend money on himself." I just stood there staring. The mechanic smiled. "Your daughter." I nodded once because suddenly my throat stopped cooperating. That afternoon I picked up the Escape. Cold air blasted from the vents almost immediately. I sat there in the parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel, letting that cool air hit my face longer than any normal person should. Then I flipped down the sun visor. A folded note slipped into my lap. "Dad, you spent years protecting me from storms I didn't even know were happening yet. Now let me take care of you for once. Love, Emma." I don't mind admitting I cried. Right there in the mechanic shop parking lot beside a Dollar General and a vape store. Full ugly crying, too. Cancer took a lot from me. My strength for a while. My marriage permanently. The future I thought I understood. But sitting there in that old Escape with cold air finally blowing again, I realized something important. Illness has a way of exposing people. Some love you until life becomes inconvenient. Some stay anyway. If you still have somebody who stayed beside you during the worst years of your life, tell them what they meant to you. A lot of people never get that chance.